So my sister said something that just blew my mind. She said, so Project 25 would have Grayson, the person that killed Sonya Mássey, at home right now instead of in the cell. He would be free.
Sonya Macy's body cam footage being released has left a lot of people in tears. You know, it's so different hearing the story and then watching the footage yourself. If stuff like this gets you triggered, I am really going to advise you to stay away from Twitter and TikTok because literally I can't even scroll past two videos without coming across a video addressing this situation. If you know you're going to get triggered, don't watch that clip. You can as well join the conversation because there has to be justice served for this woman because she's still supposed to be alive. She thought there's someone intruding into her properties. She thought there's someone trying to break into her home and she decided to call 911. People she called to come protect her are the ones who ended up taking her life. That was the genesis and the end of her nightmare. These people literally shot this woman on her head and she died. When the police arrived and she opened the door, the very first thing that this lady said was, please don't hurt me. I feel like there's something in her telling her that the people surrounding her are not going to protect her. Because at a point in the video, there was a place where she said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I think that was almost the last thing that she said, that this man pointed the gun and ended her life immediately. It was the same person who ushered her to the place where she was boiling this water to go turn off the gas to avoid fire incident. That is what this police officer is trying to use to justify the reason why he shot at her. The body cam footage showed everything, and to be honest, this woman did nothing. A 36-year-old beautiful woman who called on the police to come save her or protect her ended up being a nightmare. People are having this conversation, and here is what people are saying about the Sonya Mrs. incident.
Black women are literally not safe. And I can't unsee the juxtaposition of this very moment. At a time when a Black woman has the ability to run for the highest office in the land, we have another Black woman who is in the comfort of her own home, who calls the police because she feels unsafe. And they execute her in her home. The mistreatment, the misinformation, the gaslighting, the disenfranchising, the abuse that Black women experience every single day in the real world and online has to stop. I say this because I know it's not just coming from outside the house, it's also coming inside the house. It is the verbal, the psychological, and the physical violence that we experience every single day in this country that has gone unchecked for way too long. Because how can we tell our Black daughters that they can be anything, do anything like run and be the president of the United States, while at the same time tell them that they may lose their life to an entity that is supposed to protect them or to an intimate partner that they invite in their home?
Usually when we say an officer murdered a Black person for no reason, there's still an argument involved. The person maybe was under arrest, did something. In this case, Sonya Mássey did absolutely nothing. She was a 100% victim. It's black and white. She called the police. She thought an intruder was in her home. The police came to make sure she was safe. They were clearing the house. One officer's in the living room, invisible side of her, she's in the kitchen. He says that pot of water is boiling on the stove. She said, oh, I'm sorry. She grabs it, put it on the counter immediately. He then reaches for his firearm, although there's a taser on his chest. He grabs his firearm, he points it at her, and comes into the kitchen, closer to her. She has her hands in the air, and she says, I'm sorry. She's still apologizing, although she did nothing wrong. He fires 3 shots at her, and then turns on his body cam. The other officer comes in and says he's going to go grab his first aid kit and start administering life-saving measures. He tells the officer, don't bother. The officer goes anyways, comes back, administers life-saving measures. He watches. He was then allowed to go home and have dinner with his family. It took 10 days of protest before he was arrested. And then He was only in custody less than 45 minutes. He has been transferred or hired at over 6 different departments in the last 4 years. Why would you need to be at 6 different police departments in the last 4 years? What are you doing at each one that you're getting fired? Yet his certification has not been revoked. He's still allowed to be a police officer. Until what? One of us is going. Or how many of us is going? We don't even know. He absolutely took her out for no reason. In my opinion, this can't be the first time. Her family will never understand why. There's no why. Why? Because he wanted to. Because he could. I hope he rots in prison.
So you're basically telling me a lady called the police and the police came, made her feel like a suspect and killed her in her own home. This is America. This is America, people. I want to say R.I.P. to Sonya Mássey. My heart goes out to her and her family. That was probably one of the most disgusting videos I ever seen on the internet. Like, from start to finish. Like, obviously, it's an election year, right? Election years are always weird. You can always look at the history of election years. Always weird. To me, being a black man in America, I don't give a fuck who's in office. I'm still not going to feel safe in this country. I don't care who y'all put in there. I'm going to still have to walk outside with my head on a swivel, get bothered by police for absolutely no fucking reason. The police are not your friend. They're not your friend. Okay? If a black person calls 911, guess what? Now you're a suspect. When they pull up, they're going to try to make you a suspect, and you try to call in for help. Right? This is America. So before we can even talk about presidential debates and all that shit, when the fuck are we going to feel safe? That's number one. Like for real. Like, listen, this is a hard take, but I really believe in this. I believe white police officers should just deal with white people problems. Stay in the white neighborhoods, right? And I feel like black police officers should stay in black neighborhoods and deal with their problems. And I say that because a lot of these white police officers have never stepped foot in the hood. Ever. They're from like the fucking suburbs. They don't know how to de-escalate a problem with black people at all. Their first instinct is to shoot and kill, arrest. To be honest, black people need their own police force for their own people. I mean, we tried to do that with the Black Panther Party, but you see how that went. You know, they ain't like that. So it's like, why can't we protect ourselves and y'all protect yourself? Like, that's what it needs to go down to.
So the body cam footage of Sonya Mássey with the last moments of her life was released. I do not recommend that you watch it. Just hearing the details of the case is incredibly triggering. She is the one who called the cops because she thought someone had broken into her house. They came in, they searched the place. One cop told her to take the pot off the stove and take off the flame. She goes to do that, and then he starts yelling at her aggressively to release the pot. She puts her hands up. She says, "I'm sorry," and then she ducks. Her hands are empty. He fires 3 rounds while walking up to her, with 1 round hitting her in the face. She's then rushed to the hospital where she was pronounced unalived, and I don't understand how these things can still happen. How many more cases and stories do we have to hear about and even witness with camera footage before there's any actual change? When was this man's last psych evaluation, and who was in charge of his training? Justice for Sonya.
I'm not about to do no intro, don't ask, because I'm not fucking playing right now. When that dirty swamp water bath taking ass pig pulled up to that lady, Miss Sonya Mássey, God rest her soul, house, and saw that wristband on her wrist, that hospital band, he knew that was his opportunity right there. I don't care what y'all say. That pig had intentions. The first thing he asked that lady was, "Oh, how's your mental health today?" Not, "Hey, how you doing? Did you just have a baby? Did you just have a seizure?" Anything. The first thing he said in that video was, "How's your mental health today?" You know why? That pig had intentions. That water wasn't bothering nobody. That lady looked like she forgot that water was on the stove. But you know what he did? He made her go take the water off the stove just to deem her a threat for having the water that he ordered her to take off the stove. That lady sat there and she called on the name of Jesus because she knew, just like I knew from the time that thug stepped on that porch, that thug wanted a problem. Why are you so mad and upset that this lady is not giving you her last name right away? You don't know your last name? Take that water that's not bothering a motherfucking soul. That water can't get up and walk. Go take it off the stove. She knew from the very beginning that that man was coming there to take her life. I have watched so many videos of cops being forced to take the lives of people and their colleagues rush over to them to ask them is they okay or how they feeling. But not one colleague of his that shared a same shift with him every single day came and asked him, was he okay? And I have y'all to know, that's the same disgraceful taste of a human being right there that be walking around in them downtown marches with them Confederate flags, with them bags over their heads so y'all can't see them. That's them right there. The same ones that be telling y'all to vote red.
It was T.S. Madison who said, "Women are earth." And that always struck a chord with me because that meant for me, women reside over everything. Something so unique, supernatural, and unexplainable. They have a vision and a connection to the world that man could never understand. I believe when my sister opened her door and welcomed that man into her home, she knew what it was that walked in there. And this is the thing about a person who uses God as a weapon to assert power until they meet somebody who's in real relationship with him. That's when they find out where power really resides. What about her saying, "I rebuke you," caused so much anger in you? Because she saw you for real. She saw the wickedness in you and you proved her right. Rest in peace, my sister.
I recently learned something pretty heavy. I learned that Sonya Mássey, the woman whose life was senselessly and brutally cut short by police officers when she called them for help, I learned that she actually is a descendant of a lynching victim. This is William Donegan, Sonya Mássey's ancestor, who apparently was also a conductor on the Underground Railroad. He lived in the same state, and unfortunately his life was cut short in 1908 when a brutal race riot concluded with his lynching outside of his home. The violence of that race riot and William's death actually led to the founding of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, an organization that reached out to Sonya's family after her murder. The hospital where Sonya was pronounced dead is the same hospital where William was pronounced dead. Both lives taken at their homes, brutally and senselessly. When we talk about cycles of violence, when we talk about cycles of pain, here you have two people connected in familial bonds, separated by a little over a century, who both died horrifically, senselessly, and brutally, living around the same place, pronounced dead at the same hospital. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Much love to the family and to everyone who knew her. Our lives matter.
The Sonya Mássey case has been literally so disturbing. If you don't know, Sonya Mássey is the woman who called the police because someone had broken into her car. They did. Her windows were smashed out. The officers were rude and aggressive towards her from the second they got there. They told her to go get the water that was on the stove off of the stove because they didn't want a fire. And these are details that I read because I'm not watching that video. But she got the pot. The officer, when she grabbed the pot, she said something along the lines of "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," which is it's not a threat. It's just a thing that people say. And the officer threatened to pew her in the face, and he did. And he also pew-pewed her 3 times. He also told the other officer that was with him not to render aid. And I mean, this is it's hard to call this anything but an execution. And this paralleled with this Black woman, actually standing a chance at being the president of the United States, the top law enforcer. It just I feel like I'm so disoriented. Yeah. First, if you haven't been talking about Sonya Mássey, please do, because this is such an egregious example of why policing in this country just does not work and why it needs to be completely abolished. And yeah, I'm just mortified. Not to mention that this police officer has a tattoo that is aligned with Yahtzees. Why is somebody like that allowed to even get in a position where they have a weapon legally and the authority to assert that much power over another person? Really wild.
Body cam footage of Sonya Mássey's unaliving has just been released, and I will not be showing any images or anything like that or describing anything in graphic detail, just kind of some general thoughts. If you are someone who is uncomfortable with those topics, someone who, or is a Black woman who does not want to hear about these things because these are things that we should not be experiencing or having to talk about, please take the time to swipe away now. So the very first thing I want to say is condolences to Sonya's family. I cannot imagine what they are going through, particularly after having seen that footage. And after having seen that footage, I again do not understand how we are not having a conversation about the abolishment of police. Right before her life is unfortunately taken from her, she says something along the lines like a joke to this cop, the cop who ends up taking her life, like something like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And I think she, in my head, she sounded like she was joking. It sounded like a joke. And she was just trying to get a hot pot of water off of the stove. And this cop did not take it as a joke. Like, I don't know what about that sentence triggered him. What about that sentence set him off? And maybe it was the fucking, like, I don't know. Maybe she instinctively knew in that moment. Like, maybe there was, like, somebody was watching over her and was like, this is somebody you need to get the fuck out of your house. Like, this is somebody who does not need to be in your space, because then he immediately proceeds to take her life. And the way it was previously described was as if, like, Aid was like the one cop who had his body cam on immediately like administered aid, and it took him a second. They like had this weird back and forth, the obvious back and forth of, oh, I just took somebody's life unjustifiably and this is going to be a shit show now. You can tell from the clip that she's also very disoriented. Like, I think she's like afraid of something. It might have been them. It might have, her car was broken into. Like, there's just so much that happens in this. There's like a 30-minute clip of this that is on YouTube that like shows the beginning, the middle, and the end of all of this. And it is insane to me how quickly he went to violence. We cannot continue to pretend like this is a system that is worth protecting. Like, this is a system that is worth continuing to coddle, because this leads to the unaliving of Black people, Black women like Sonya Mássey, Black men like Steve Perkins. I honestly think that people really need to evaluate how we look at police and what our systems currently are, and if we can do something different, because this is not viable, this is not reasonable, and I really am hoping for all the best for her. And
Have you guys been following the story of Sonya Mássey? What do you think? This was just a police officer who saw the opportunity to take out a Black person, and he did. One of the stage made mention of something that I feel like, yeah, that is the absolute truth. Because when he came out after, none of the other police officers are outside ranting him to ask him if he was okay. And that is to say that this woman was not being violent with this man. It was the one who had ordered her to go off the gas because they don't want to be dealing with a fire situation. When she was at the pot, he shouted at her to drop it, and she kind of put her hand up and said, I am sorry. She didn't do anything. I don't think that woman had any intention of pouring that water on that police officer. He just felt that this was going to be a good storyline to protect him and just use that opportunity. He just felt that was going to be the perfect time to execute the evil things that he had in his mind, and he shot at this woman. Coming out of the house, he was even calling the woman a B word. And other officers outside standing, them actually looks disgusted. Nobody walked up to him to ask him if he's okay, because apparently there was nothing violent being done to him. This woman was never violent towards him. She only called them to come protect her. And the very first question he even asked this woman was, how is her mental health? If you have a feeling or you can sense that someone is not okay, maybe because she's been terrified that someone is in a compound, why do you then not go ahead as a police officer that she had called to come help her feel safe? Why did you not assure her that she's safe? Wasn't there to protect this woman clearly? It took the life of this woman. I saw in the news that he has been suspended like 4 times or something, and they still allow him remain in that position. How, why, and when is this stopping? This is the question that Americans have right now. Let me hear what you guys think about this tragic story. Like I said, if it's going to trigger you, please and please and please don't go and watch the body cam footage at all, because almost everyone has touched on what happened in the video. It was a very short moment. Everything went from 0 to 100 real quick. It was very short. No one could have predicted what was on the mind of that man was to literally kill this woman. And you will know that he actually wants to kill this woman because he shot at her on her head. It will only take the grace of God to survive. So let me hear what you guys think in the comment section. Justice for Sonya Mássey, and I will see you guys in the next one.